afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. Let me begin by giving you a warm welcome to our literary program, book discussion, and book signing out of the book Lebih Putih Dariku. This session presents as a collaboration between Erasmus Huis and 17,000 Island of Imagination Foundation. Before we start, I would like to welcoming Ms. Yolanda Melzert as the Director of Erasmus Huis and Mrs. R.D. Stoyos Braken, Deputy Head of Mission, Minister Plenipotentiary, Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. As the opening of our exciting session this afternoon, I invite Ms. Yolanda Melzert, the Director of Erasmus Huis, to come on stage.
The Erasmus Huis started 52 years ago with books. And from these books and from the readings we did, the meetings on literature, it started to be a cultural center because artists coming by, playing on their guitar, on their violin, giving small concerts, and now it grew out to what we are today with this beautiful theater, our exhibition room downstairs, and not to forget our beautiful, really beautiful library downstairs. If you don't have the opportunity to see this, please go there. May I ask you who is for the first time here in Erasmus Huis? Are there people who are here for the first time? 1, 2, 3, yeah. Okay, welcome, special welcome to you. I'm very proud that we can host this afternoon, and especially welcome to the author of today, Dido Michielsen, who wrote a really marvelous book, which maybe some of you have read. I've read it 2 years ago, I thought, and since then I was hoping to welcome you one day here. I was hoping to introduce this to an Indonesian editor to translate it, but as this goes, beautiful books find their own ways. So suddenly there was COVID, and then I heard that an editor was really planning to make a Bahasa Indonesia translation of this book. So I'm really very happy. Thank you to the editor, Marjin Kiri, because I think you do a wonderful job to publish all this book. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Because we, the Dutch and the Indonesians have a long history, not always happy, but sometimes happy, sometimes not. And this is a story that tells about our common past and told from a young lady's point of view. We will hear about this this afternoon. And you can read it yourself, of course, because there will be a book selling and signing. So that makes the value of the book even more if you buy it today. And I'm really hoping that we can do a lot more of these kind of projects, because there's so much literature to be read, so much literature to be translated, so much research to be done, and so we're just starting to bring our two worlds, the Indonesian and the Dutch world, on a very respective and very well-balanced way together with these kind of projects. So I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon, and will give the floor to our moderator again, and see you after this activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melzert. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Yani Kurniawan as Production Manager, 17,000 Islands of Imagination Foundation, to come on stage.
Thank you, everyone, for your attendance this evening. Apologies in advance, because it should be Laura Prinsloo, our chairwoman, who should be here standing speaking to you, but unfortunately she couldn't make it, so I will have to make do. So this is actually our second year collaborating with Erasmus House. Last year we also have several Dutch authors joining us in session in both our foundation event, and then also in the Jakarta Content Week 2021. And this year in Jakarta Content Week 2022, we also planning to have a surprise for you in November. Hopefully, it's a name that will excite you all in the coming months. So first of all, thank you for Erasmus House for hosting this event, and then our appreciation goes to. I will just echo the sentiments from Yolanda. Our appreciation to Mr. Roni Agustinus and his team for pouring their heart out in translating and bringing the book to Indonesian readers. That I am sure many will love it. And this book is in our opinion one of the important work of fiction that can broaden our understanding on what happens in the past within Indonesia and Netherlands. So we are blessed today, of course, with Dido Michielsen, and then we also have a wonderful moderator, Mr. Dhianita Pertiwi, who I'm sure will be able to guide you to this upcoming discussion. And without further ado, let's get on with it. And once again, thank you for joining us today this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Kurniawan. Before we start further, I have some information. We have some exciting gifts from 17,000 Islands of Imagination Foundation for you who having the best Insta story posting about this event. You just need to unprivate your Instagram and mention at pulau_imaji, at Erasmus Huis _underscore Jakarta, and margin kiri. We are waiting for your Instagram stories, and you can have the gift from us for the best one. Okay, it's now my pleasure to introduce our moderator. She is a very talented writer, and also our beautiful moderator already here. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Miss Dhianita Kusuma Pertiwi.
Thank you, Mbak Adis, for the welcoming. And good afternoon, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dhianita Kusuma Pertiwi, and I'm very glad to welcome you all to the book discussions and signing of Lebih Putih Dariku, published by Margin Kiri. This event is made possible by Erasmus House and the 17,000 Pulau Imaji Foundation, and this collaboration offers literature programs based on books that opens various ways of contacts, meetings, and acculturations of the Indonesian and Dutch cultures. And this book, Lebih Putih Dariku, first published in Dutch with the original title Lichter dan Ik. This book unravels the story of a Javanese woman called Isah and confronts us with the struggle as a Nyai who lived under the patriarchal system formed by the mingling of Javanese feudalism and highly hierarchical colonialism. Isah and the story of her life also reminds us of several books and other literatures that have raised the issue of Nyai during the Dutch East Indies. We can name several of them, like Nyai Dasima, written by G. Francis in 1896, and then Cerita Nyi Paina, Satu Anak Gadis Yang Amat Setia. It is a story by H. Cromer, published in 1900. And of course, the story of Nyai Ontosoro in Prabu Dhianatatur's Buru Quartet. Yet of course, when I read this book, I found that Lebih Putih Dariku offers a new perspective in telling the story of a Nyai. There are at least two things that make this work quite different from those that I have mentioned. The first one is the main character here named Isah instead of Nyai Isah like the previous works. And then the second, the narrative is told in first-person point of view, placing Isah as the main subject who controls the flow of the story. And of course, there are other several interesting topics to be discussed regarding this book, both in terms of narrative techniques and the issues raised by the author. And I'm so happy that joining us today, the author of the book Lichter dan Ik, Dido Michielsen. Please come up to the stage. Yeah, we are so happy that we welcome you here, and I see on Instagram that you are having some book discussions in Makassar and also in Jakarta. Are you actually having a book tour in Indonesia?
This is my last performance for the book. I'm leaving for the Netherlands on Monday, but I had a wonderful time here, and the Makassar was unfortunately online, but very well informed interviewer, and I had a really lovely evening in Yogyakarta with all kinds of young people, very curious, very eager to know more about the history of my book. So that was very...
You went there, you went to Yogyakarta.
Yes, I just arrived here yesterday.
That's really great. Yeah, maybe next year or some days later you can come to Makassar, because you know the vibes in Makassar with the book discussion is also very high, and they're so curious about some literature discussions. And I will go back to you, Dido. But the one thing that I would like to address here before we continue with the discussions of this book is the vital role of the translator who has helped us to read Lichter dan Ik in Bahasa Indonesia. By then, I would like to invite Miss Marta Di Susilawati as the translator to deliver her remarks by the video.
Selamat sore semuanya. Dari Arnhem di negeri Belanda, pertama-tama saya mengucapkan selamat kepada Dido Michielsen atas terbitnya edisi Indonesia dari bukunya Lichter dan Ik. Adalah sebuah kehormatan bagi saya untuk bisa menerjemahkan buku ini. Goedemiddag Dido en gefeliciteerd met jouw boek in het Bahasa Indonesia. Het was een eer om jouw boek te mogen vertalen. Eindelijk komt Isah terug naar haar geboorteland. Ketika saya membaca buku ini untuk pertama kalinya, saya dibuat terbuai dan tersentuh oleh cerita hidup Isah. Menurut saya, buku ini harus diterjemahkan, karena isinya mengungkap bagian dari sejarah yang masih belum begitu kita kenal. Selain itu, buku ini juga memberikan gambaran betapa marginalnya posisi perempuan dari masa ke masa. Usai membaca buku ini, saya menghubungi Roni Agustinus dari margin kiri. Pada tahun 2020, dunia perbukuan di Indonesia guncang akibat pandemi. Tapi ketika Roni membaca ulasan yang saya kirim, dia tertarik, lalu menghubungi agen penulis dan mengurus hak terjemahannya. Ini adalah buku kedua yang saya garap buat margin kiri. Proses selanjutnya mungkin tidak secepat seperti yang direncanakan pada awalnya, tapi akhirnya singkat cerita buku ini terbit dan sekarang bisa kita nikmati. Saya tidak ingin mengganggu kalian lebih lama lagi. Saya hanya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada penulis, penerbit, dan Letteran Fonds Belanda yang sudah memungkinkan terbitnya terjemahan dari buku ini. Juga kepada para pembaca, saya berharap kalian menikmatinya. Al met al, ik wil de schrijver, de uitgeverij en het Nederlandse Letterenfonds bedanken voor het bijdragen van het vertalen van het boek. Veel plezier verder met jullie programma en misschien tot ziens. Dag!
Thank you, Miss Martha. Thank you for his excellent work in translating Lichter dan Ik, so now that we can read it in Bahasa Indonesia with the title Lebih Putih Dariku. Dido, before Lichter dan Ik, you already wrote Lisa and Lynn, and the writing of Van Family, Van Cleef. Lisa and Lynn tells the story of her two young daughters who were born in China and then live in Netherlands. And then the writing focused on the life of Rachel Van Cleef and her family during the war. And now the book is based on the life of your great mother and I can see that from this you have a great interest in family history, or at least you are trying to picture great historical events, but using the perspective of family. And I'm just wondering what brought you into this? Why? I mean, you have the background as a journalist, then why don't you just picture history in the so-called quote-unquote, capital H, something that is big and, already usually used in history book?
Well, about 12 years ago, my mother gave me her life story filled with pictures, and my mother was born here in Purwokerto. And the first picture was that of my great-great-grandmother. And I was so intrigued by that I thought I want to know more about her. So, of course, like my other books that are non-fiction, I was thinking about telling her story. But there was nothing to be found about her. Not even her, I didn't even have her name. Only some sprookjes.
There's some stories.
Yeah, it was just like a Disney story. And I found out that that couldn't have been true, like she was a princess from the Kraton. And perhaps you don't know, but in the Netherlands, a lot of people, Indo-European people, stem from a princess. That's the story, but of course, most of them don't. So that was what really intrigued me, to delve into the history of those women that were nameless in a way.
Then, how do you find that interesting? I mean, you found that your grandmother, and then anything that it intrigued you, some kind of stories that might something you never heard before, you never expected before. What was some interesting stories that you heard from your mother?
Yes, but I realized she was the first person in line to bring forth people of mixed blood, which was, of course, interesting to me. So to know where I come from and how it came about. And the period in which she lived was interesting because of the history, everything that changed. The Suez Canal opened, photography entered, steamships, steam trains. There was a lot going on here. So that's how I became more and more interested in that era. And then I learned about the Nyai, of course, that she was a Nyai, the housekeeper concubine of a Dutch man.
How do you accept that identity?
Accept that. That's not really. I was, when I read more about Nyais, there's this wonderful book of Reggie Bai, who really writes down the history of the Nyai, a non-fiction book. And I found out that a lot of people are coming from these anonymous women that were always neglected, sent away, and I felt like I had to do them right and do something makes them see the world through their eyes.
And now allow me to share a bit about my work, which I wrote based on the life of my grandfather, who was imprisoned following the 1965 killings in Indonesia as a political prisoner. And I have to admit that when I wrote that book, it was quite emotional. I collected archives, I questioned my family members, and then, I heard several facts that I didn't expect before. I heard it from my mom, and it's pretty emotional. I'm just wondering how your experience, Dido, during the writing of Lichter dan Ik.
I think my emotions were quite different because this was, of course, 19th century, so it's far away. And as I said, I was moved by the fate of all those anonymous women. And also because my husband and I have adopted 2 girls from China. So we don't know their mothers as well. So in a way, history repeated itself.
It repeated itself, yeah. That's maybe one of the big lessons when we're trying to read again and learn history. At some points, we don't want some tragedy in the past to happen again. And what do you actually learn from the history of Nyai at this point?
What I observed?
The lesson that you learn.
The way men treated women was awful. They were called piece of furniture. They were called dictionary because they were the liaison between the people from Java, in this case Java, and the Dutch. And they had to speak the languages. They had to do everything. And then they could slavery was abolished not long before that. So they were sort of replacement for the slaves. For the enslaved women, I have to say.
That's the big lesson for us. I mean, in my experience, when I try to get closer to my family's history, I'm wondering that we cannot have that repeat again, the killings and everything, and also slavery. We cannot have that again in the near time in the future. And then we will now get deeper into the book. I'm personally impressed with the way you explored the details in your book. I mean, I was born in Japanese, and then when I read the book, I could sense strong vibes of the culture. It really shapes the story. It is not just simply a setting. And then, like 2 days ago, I watched the trailer video of this book where you showed photo albums and also a stack of letters from your descendants' times. And how did you work actually with the archives? Did they provide everything, the details that you want to tell in the book?
Now, as I said, I didn't know her name and she wasn't registered. So in the official archives, I couldn't find her. And I could find photos and family albums that gave me an idea. And then in 2018, I went to Jakarta to do research. And my original idea was to have the guide come with me to the library and delve into the archives and translate things for me. And then I realized, first, it will all be in Japanese, so I have no idea where to send him. And then he can be busy translating for hours. And and then I have to say, oh no, I'm sorry, that was the wrong archive. So I decided to turn it around. First, I always wanted to write a novel, so I thought this is the right moment. And then I said to him, listen, we're going to walk here in the Kraton and outside in Jogja, and let us look through her eyes. Where could she have lived? Where could she have played? And that turned out better than going to the archives for me.
And I know that you brought some photos here. Maybe we can show it here. And Dido will explain several of the photos that she has.
Yes, here on the left is my real great-great-grandmother. That was the first photo in my mother's album that inspired me to start looking into her life. And on the right is the Dutch. Here you see another, left is Chanting, who was another grandmother of me. She tells the story. And on the right down is Ferdinand Wiggers. He was actually a real Indische journalist. And he wrote in Malay. There was a group of journalists who wanted to let the people know what was going on. So they translated important articles, but they also translated novels. He did 1001 Nights and The Count of Monte Cristo. And during my research, I found a book translated in Dutch about Nyais in a positive way. We're all stories, because in a lot of Dutch literature, the Nyai is, you look down on her, she's something between a whore and a piece of furniture, not very positive. And then I found this book with stories of Indo-European writers, like my own great-grandfather, that were positive. This was the room where I worked. It's my time capsule during the writing. And he wrote a short story called Nyai Isah. So I thought, okay, I can use that name. Yeah.
You can
That
explain
was
us a
the
bit?
book with Nyai, Mother of All People. And it has all the famous stories about Nyais that make them human.
Yeah. And there's good illustrations over there. What about this?
This is the family of Ferdinand Wiggers with Chanting. And on the right, the girl is my grandmother. And it took me a while. Then I realized on the left is Chanting's mother. So I thought, oh, that's my other great-great-grandmother. Chanting was also a Nyai, but after her third child, He married her. First, she had to become Christian, of course, and then she was called Ernestina Hermina, and then she could marry Ferdinand.
We have another photos. Maybe you can explain that also.
Yes, this is the grandchildren of my main character in real life. On the left, in front is my grandfather. So he married the little girl on the last slide. Yeah. These are them on their wedding day in Purwokerto. They were married just before my mother. Well, this is my mother with her grandmother, which is Louisa, the daughter of Isah in the book, and the main character of my next novel.
Oh, great.
This was a promo photo of the theater group that did brought my book on stage. And the beautiful thing is, what they did was, you see these three women in front. They played Isah, the young one, middle, and old one, but they were on stage together. And that was so magical, because in the beginning I thought, how can people understand that? And then in the end, the director said, I do this so she's not that lonely. And it was a beautiful sight. It's been elected now for an important theater festival, so that's a great honor for them.
Yeah, maybe we can have the theater here also.
This is the idea for my next book. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I should show it. My mother would say, that brings bad luck.
Okay, is that all?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, but one thing that I'm now wondering is, how did you identify those family members? I mean, you said that they were unidentified in the past with no letters and everything, but then how did you actually identify each of them from the photos? Anybody showed you, or?
Oh, no, I mean, for the men, of course, I could find the men. There was a huge stack of papers about their important lives. But the women were all, nobody registered them until they got married, of course, but they didn't exist really.
And that's where you actually put the, you call it, they say it's an historical fiction, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you actually work on the fiction and the history? Is it like, okay, you've got these registrations letters as the historical facts, and then you bring up some fictions into this, but or how do you actually experiment with it?
Yes, of course I want you to live the story with her, through her eyes, but all the important events, like earthquakes or what happens in the East Indies, that has to be correct, historical correct. So that was my frame. And then I started fantasizing about her life.
Yeah, it's wonderful. How do you actually really want to see this as from her eyes? And you did the observation. How long was it? The observations?
Before my study, before I started writing, I think 1.5 years I was living with the idea. But of course, some of it was told to me by my mother. But I could never verify what was true and what was not.
Right. But that's the art of this, right? And then, okay, we can go on to the next thing that I would like to explore. And then I realized that in this book, you create layers of characters as the storyteller. There is Chanting, Isah's master, who opens the book, then retells the story of Isah, and also closes the narrative. And for me, it is one of the interesting aspects from this book. I think at one point, you use a first-person perspective for Isah to talk about her life. But on the other hand, you create another character to retell her story to the readers. And considering the fact that it is actually your first the debut fiction, and why do you choose this technique?
Well, a very practical reason, actually. I knew my main character would be a very simple, uneducated girl that grew up and was naive and would get into the world and find out it wasn't such a lovely place as she thought it would be. But I needed somebody to be able to explain things to her and to the readers, things she would never know. So that's why I made Chanting the storyteller.
But yeah, I think Isah's story is real. So what I found when I read that is very feminine. Is my personal view. I can sense that the details actually when she dances, it is something, the details, everything, it is so feminine. Do you actually really work on this to make it, very from woman's perspective? Do you really work on it?
Yeah. I mean, that was important because it was never done. I couldn't find another book that did it in this way.
Okay, and then we can say that actually, regardless who the narrator is, this book provides a room for Isah, a Nyai, someone who might not have get enough opportunities to speak due to her social positions. And then we haven't heard about your personal opinion regarding this issue. How do you actually, see this side of history, both in terms of Indonesia and maybe in Netherlands also? The society see this history and you personally?
Yeah, well, I was appalled, of course, because it was such an institution. It was so pragmatic of the Dutch to say, okay, you can have a wife from the country itself, so you stay relaxed, you don't go to the whores, you stay healthy, and you don't want to go back to the Netherlands. It was just normal practice until 1920. I mean, it existed till the Second World War broke, and that made me really angry that they could treat women like that and use them as objects, actually. So that's what I wanted to make clear, that this existed. The funny thing is, of course, that when the British took over and Raffles was here, he didn't like this practice of Nyais at all. He brought his own wife, and the English didn't have Nyais like the Dutch. So you could think, why was that? Because they didn't want to mix with other races, peoples, or were they so decent? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. This is really complicated. I mean, at one point, they didn't practice this Nyai, but they have also some kind of making class structure also pretty complicated at the time. And then I also, at the beginning of our talk, I mentioned several literatures and books that also bring up the issue of Nyai. And like you said, it is not pretty different from the way they tell us the Nyai. And it was all written by male, both from Indonesians and Netherlands. Did you actually read those books?
Some of them I did, yeah. Nyai Deshima and Pramujan Tatur I read. And of course other stories in that other book.
Yeah, and what do you think? Especially the way they represent Nyai. Is it something that is, you want to bring these women into the front to speak? And do actually those books did that?
Well, at least they made them human. I'd like to go one step further and make you step into their lives and personalize it.
Because I think at some point, I don't know, maybe because you as a woman and then wrote about Nyai, you have this another perspective from those three writers that I have mentioned. In terms of, like I said previously, you got this feminine vibes in this word that I didn't find in Nyai Dasima or any other books. Even okay, Nyai Antosoro is presented as someone who is smart and not that she's very vocal, but the idea of she as a woman in a feminine way, I got it from this book. That's one thing that I really underline here. And then the translations of Lichter dan Ik into Lebih Putih Dariku, I think is more than just changing the language of this book. It is, I can say that it is some kind of homecoming because Isah was actually an Indonesian and she spent her life here. You first wrote it in Dutch and then it is being translated to Indonesian to be read by Indonesian readers. And what do you think about this?
Well, the first time I heard that it was going to be translated, I was very moved. It felt like I was bringing her, or she was going home. Because, of course, I never imagined this would happen while I wrote the book and while it was published in the Netherlands. So that is, and then now, of course, I'm very curious because I wrote about culture and about life here, but perhaps I'm just curious how people will receive it. Until now, I had good reviews from readers, so let's hope that continues.
Yeah, and I believe this book has received positive responses from Dutch readers, as it also won one award in 2020. Congratulations for that. And then with this homecoming, what do you actually expect from Indonesian readers?
Well, first of all, that they appreciate my effort, of course. And then I was thinking, in the Netherlands, I have part of the Dutch audience feels ashamed after they read my book. They come to me and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel so ashamed for what we did there." And I think it will also here explain more about life in the colony then. What I expect, I don't just that they know about this, that this happened. I have no idea how it affected their lives. I know how it affects the life of all Indo-Europeans, especially the ones who live in the Netherlands and have no idea who their ancestors were. But how it affects life of Indonesians, I have to wait and see.
Yeah, but now I'm wondering, did you ever met, another person who is have the same identity with you in Netherlands?
If I met them?
Yep.
Yes, and what I had not expected, I got almost daily, I received emails from Indo-European young people, say in their 30s, who thanked me for this book because it filled in some empty spots in their heritage as well. So I had not expected that.
Yeah, congratulations for that. I mean, when we wrote some books, it is, so okay, we got the awards, but it's sometimes the dialogues after that is more something that is really, really an expensive experience. We opened up new dialogues with another people. That's a very great thing about writing a book. And that will be the last questions from me. And I will give the opportunity for the audience to explore some other topics in Lebih Putih Dariku. So for anyone who would like to share your impressions about the book or delivery questions to Dido, please raise your hand. Okay, I can see some. And please, the short hair, sorry. Yep. And for your information, the first 3 persons will receive a new gift from Margin Kiri.
Hello. Should I say my name? Okay. My name is Yasmin. I've finished reading the book, and I think I have a question that I don't know if I can say it because it's a bit of a spoiler about the book. So, as much as interesting Isah and chanting of a character, at the end of it, I'm actually more interested in the character a lot because at first she was so hateful towards Isah, so evil. But at the end of it, it turns out that I feel like she actually has a very inferiority complex inside of her that make me feels like, oh, perhaps he was so hateful towards Isah because she doesn't want another mixed raised like her to be so lonely and then to be so sad. And I'm just asking, Miss, how do you create her? What was your process of creating her? Yeah, I guess that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I think Blood was pretty evil until the end. And I did not have to create her. I meet people like her. People who are, trying to be better than or wider than they are and looking down on other people that are closer to them than that is comfortable for them. So she's a person that really exists. And that's also one of the complications of being of mixed blood, I think. As if you have to choose or which side are you on?
Yes, we can continue with the next questions from the back. Yep.
Thank you. I won't stand up. I have a bad back today. My name is Isna Marifa. I want to ask you about what you said, how the book was received in Holland. But link it, you said that some of the Dutch people who read it felt ashamed. But I've also seen recent news articles about how the exhibition in the Rijksmuseum, Revolutie, was created some controversy in Holland about the Dutch experience as colonizers in now Indonesia. Can you elaborate more on that? What's the atmosphere among the Dutch public about learning more about the colonial past?
It depends on where you look. I mean, in the Indo-European community in the Netherlands, I always say it's a snake pit. You have all kinds of, you have the veterans, of course, and you have the young people who want to know everything about decolonization and to make that happen. And then you have the older generations who still think that it was a good idea to colonize East Indies. So that's what makes it so complicated. In a way, I was safe, like Revolutie wasn't safe because, of course, it was the Indonesian point of view and they could complain about that. There was too little attention for the Dutch suffering during the Revolutie. But for me, I wrote about an era that was so far away that everybody can read it without being offended. The closer you get to the present, the more difficult it becomes, I think.
We can go on to the next questions.
Thank you for having me. And sorry, I can start. So I just want to ask about the Dutchman gay. I mean, when I read this book about the gay, I was serious about why gay is giving everything that he can. Like he want to Isa to be a smart woman and not as a lower class of Japanese. And I want to know about how can you explore the gay character, and when it made it, why you want to show to the reader? Thank you.
That he was such a brute as he was.
About the gay, about Isa husband want to make Isa smart woman and not a lower Japanese woman.
Well, that was one of the things I could do because I wrote from her perspective. She hopes she will get married. She hopes she will be an honorable woman and have a little family with him. But she's so naive. She has no idea he never intended to do that. He was engaged. He was from a wealthy, important Dutch family. And he never intended to stay with her or mention her in his letters to his family. So that's when he leaves. Oh, now I'm giving big spoilers. So that is what I wanted to show, that the shock and the surprise for her when he decides to go back to the Netherlands.
Okay, and I saw several hands before also. We can have some other audiences to give the questions. Please.
Okay, I'm Lina. I'm from Purwokerto, and I moved to here to study here. And as a woman, I've inspired a lot from this book. I think even I haven't read the book yet. There have been many popular films that have been adapted from book or short stories. Which of these do you think would be well adapted into a show or movie, Miss Dido? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what was the last.
You mentioned about
A movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
If it will become a movie,
Yes.
I hope so. We're talking about it, but of course, as you know, it takes a long time and a lot of money to make a movie. But I hope it will be, of course. You know, when I saw it on stage and they changed it so much, they followed the book really very well. But of course, the three women and the decor, everything was so different. Then I realized, so now it's not my story anymore. It's become a story on its own. So that was beautiful too.
Yeah, the adaptations will bring a new story.
Yeah.
And but how do you actually being positive about the opportunities from this story? It can be. What do you plan actually from this story?
I'm planning
for this,
to.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
For this story, for this book.
What I'm planning to
Yep.
do, I don't have any plans. Now other people make plans for my book. And I'm willing to help them, of course. But I'm just going to write about her daughter, who is living another kind of life. She was Indo-European. She was supposed to be gelijkgesteld, the same as a European in status, but in practice, it didn't feel like that. So that's her problem. And she's looking for her mother, but in a way, she's looking for her identity. She has the problem of being from mixed blood and not knowing where she belongs.
I bet that will be a great story.
Thank
And
you.
then next, can we have, yep, please.
Hello.
Yep.
I'm Roy, and I have not read your book yet, but I have been in the movies here in Indonesia for a long, long time, and I've played many parts, whereas the Dutch in the Asian have been pictured as the bad guys, and so I think it's about approach as a writer, how you approach the situation. So I'm really anxious to read your book. I have heard a lot of comments from my friends in the Netherlands, and I hope that the picture what I have, because what I have played in the many years, that I can find it back, because I have seen that there are a lot of stories and have been books who misinterpreted the Dutch in the Asian. So I don't want to defend all the Dutch people who had Nyais or whatever, you know, but I can understand that it happened at that time. I don't agree with the power they used to mistreat the women. I completely agree with you. So that's what my point is. I hope that I can find it back in your book, that I can see again the things I had in my mind, in my own mind, as how it has been, how it should be, and what it is now? Thank you.
Oh, I don't know. I don't feel very optimistic about what you will find in my book, but please read it. And there's one character who might, his name is Arnold, remember him. He might do a little bit what you hope to find in the book.
Okay, and the next one, yes, please.
First of all, thank you very much for your book. I've read it in Dutch, and I will try to do it in Bahasa Indonesia. Also, thank you for the very interesting interview going on. I've got a question, and that might touch or is on your personal life. You told us you've adopted 2 girls. Have they read the book? Has that been spoken with them? How do they look in that? And is there also a piece of that into your new book? Thank you.
Well, now I have to give big spoilers. Actually, I wrote 2 books about the adoption of my girls. One about the process in the Netherlands, and one about that my husband and the girls went back to China to visit the orphanages. And they didn't want to read those books. They're in it, they contributed to it, they wrote their own ideas, but later on they didn't want to read it. Now they both read this book, and suddenly they want to talk about it, about being adopted, about what it means for a mother. And that's also a big part in my next book. This is the search for the daughters, and the other one will be about the search for the mother. So it's when I was writing, and I thought, oh, again, I'm writing about adoption somehow. It made it very logical for me that this was going to happen in this book.
Yeah, maybe it's something that is already in your head, talking about families and everything.
Yes, and of course I read a lot about giving up your children and what it means for the children later on. So that was also in my head. That's what I knew about, something about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think that many people really touch on that issue, especially in literature. Yeah, that's a really good thing to do. And do we have another questions?
Hello, I'm Astri, and I'm currently actually writing a book with just anthology with my such community. So my question is about how you separate yourself about your personal life and the story that you imagine in the book, so that your life will you can be mindful, and your personal story or personal life will not, like deep or like the story that you create.
I think I can only write when I do identify with my main character. You know, there are things happening in this book that and that happened to me. You know, you use your everyday experience and transport it to another era.
Yeah, because I think there are a lot of people trying to have a space with their works, make it something different or separate from their lives. So sometimes they think that putting our personal experiences is something that would make it really critical about this work that we are working on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I also know writers who say you cannot write about an era that you haven't been in yourself. And I can imagine, but I like to place myself there. So that's personal, of course, what you
right, that's writer's decisions after all.
Yeah, but I can imagine what you did was so close to home, and your family. That's much more difficult. I wrote a short monologue for the 15th of August about my father, who fought in the Dutch army here. and about me having problems with him during my life, not knowing what he was, you know. But that's very emotional to write about.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we can go on with the next question. See, we still have some. No? Okay. I would like to announce again that the three first person who asked the questions will receive a special gift from Margin Kiri. So please find the master ceremony to find the gift to be given to you. And then before I close the sessions, I would like to ask Dido for your closing statement. Dido, we all know that the global pandemic has greatly affected our world, including the lives of writers around the globe. And for you as an author, what are the lessons that we can learn from these situations? And what do you want to say to everyone in this room to stay creative during these challenging times?
Yes, actually, I think for writers, COVID wasn't the worst of times. I mean, I already lived like I was in isolation, so I could write, I could concentrate, I wasn't... and also, when my book came out just before the COVID measures were taken, so people started to read in the Netherlands. That wasn't so bad for me. So...
But what's the something that we can learn? I mean, okay, maybe some people might get better time at home and then spend their times to write. But I think there are some people who are actually economically damaged with this pandemic and everything. Do you have some things to say or the lessons that you can take for us?
You think I can solve all the problems? Well, I was, of course, in the Netherlands. Lots of people got money to survive. And when I was here and I talked to my guide in Jakarta and he said, I'm not sure if he's here. And he told me that he hadn't worked for 3 years and had to find all kinds of other jobs. I never realized how big the impact is here. And when I see that everywhere restaurants are closed, people are having a hard time to survive, even now it's over, and you have to be afraid that a new pandemic will come. That's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So we hope that we can manage this time and still, being creative during these challenging times, because sometimes we need escapes, and writing sometimes is the escape from this problem of life.
That's true, but you can also tell that now in the Netherlands, now it's over, that people are so happy to meet each other again and see people. I don't know how that's here in Indonesia, of course, how free you are to meet people and do everything you want.
Yep, we are gathering now, and it is a pretty good thing for me. Myself, it has been like 3 years. I'm not having this pretty gathering like this, and to be honest, I'm very nervous for this moment because it has been like 3 years not meeting people, and then having this great meetings with many people. So it is really something that is pretty changing over let's say 3 years for now.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be creative on your own while you're writing, but of course you need input and art and culture and meetings with other people to be able to use it for your creativity.
Yeah, I hope we all can be safe and healthy from now on. And thank you, Dido. And now we move on to the next sessions. That is the gifting ceremony. There will be a special gift from Dido and Margin Kiri to be given to Erasmus House and 17,000 Pulau Imaji Foundation. Then I would like to invite Dido, Mr. Roni Agustinus from Margin Kiri, Miss Yolande Melsert from Erasmus House, and Mr. Yani from Pulau Imaji Foundation to come up to the stage.
I'll take my mic with me, please. Come on. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, I think the first thing we do is to hand over the books. Yes. Oh, to me. Okay.
I can give it to her. No, I just wanted to thank you and the Erasmus House for inviting me. As I said, it was very special to bring my great-great-grandmother home, and now I could do it personally and meet my readers. So thank you very much for this
Thank you for
opportunity.
coming over. Thank you so much. We had to wait for 2 years. That's what COVID did, because you are on my list such a long time. And thanks to you, Baron, we have this book now. I'll try to read it in Bahasa Indonesia, I promise. With a dictionary next to it, because I have to work on my Bahasa Indonesia as well. So thank you so much. For people who are in the Erasmus House and deliver for the activity and the creativity in this house, we also have a present. Where's my team? There you come. Because the name giver of this house, Erasmus Desiderius, was a famous philosopher. And thanks to him, we could name this house Erasmus House. And he stands for democracy, for respect. I will show you. And I will hand over the first one to you, Dido, and I hope we can work together.
Oh, it's Erasmus himself.
Yeah, it's Erasmus.
Thank you very much.
And one for you. Thank you so much. I really hope that we can work together more often, because you have a wonderful fund in your as an editor. And thank you so much for translating this. Thank you so much. Then Pulau Imaji. We work together for 1.5 years now. I'm very happy because you have the same quality standard as we have, and looking forward to go on working together with this in our next program. Thank you so much. And our moderator of today, also a writer. Thank you so much for being here and doing this interview today. And hope to see you again. Okay.
Thank you, Miss
So
Ivani.
now we.
Ronnie wants. You have another first copy to
Sorry.
hand over.
To Pulau Imaji. Yes, please. Go ahead and take the center stage, please.
Say something.
Okay. So for the ones who don't have this copy yet, you can go to that door, and Dido will sign there. And we're looking forward to your next book as well. I'm really looking forward. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Miss Ivani.
Picture.
The session.
Picture.
Oh, wait.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to have such an interesting and inspiring talk with you. Thank you, Dido, for your time and sharing with us. And we will be waiting for your upcoming works. And my greatest appreciation for Erasmus House and the 17,000 Pulau Imaji Foundation for hosting this event. And thank you for joining us with our literature program, book discussion, and book signing out of the book Lebih Putih Dariku. There will be another book discussion event held by Erasmus House and the Pulau Imaji Foundation on 11 to 13 November 2022 at the Jakarta Content Week. Make sure you don't miss it by following the Instagram accounts of Erasmus House, Pulau Imaji, and Jakarta. And you can also rewatch our dialogue or find other interesting sessions in the Erasmus House, Pulau Imaji, and Jakarta YouTube channels. See you at the next events. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Michielsen and Ms. Pertiwi. It's such a pleasure for us to have an opportunity to sharing with you. And that's not all. We give an opportunity to those in attendance who want to get Ms. Dido Michielsen autograph. The book signing location is on the left side of the stage, through the door behind me. And for those who want to get Ms. Michielsen autograph, we welcome it. For those who want to buy the book Lebih Putih Dariku or other books published by Margin Kiri, we invite you to buy it at the Margin Kiri publisher stands located at the same location with signing booth. On behalf of the Erasmus Huis, 17,000 Islands of Imagination Foundation and Margin Kiri Publishers, we would like to thank you all to join us here today. We're looking forward to seeing you in our next exciting sessions this year. I wish you have a pleasant day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.